I've accepted the fact that one of the default themes of this channel, one of the accidental themes of this channel, is that a lot of what I do is I explain an American perspective to people, say in Europe. There are a lot of people in Europe who watch my channel, and they're educated and enlightened by the often perceived ignorance of an American. Okay, so but ultimately I don't see it that I'm right or wrong, or Europeans are right or wrong. I think it's just a different perspective and a different culture and a different way of growing up. And here's the perfect comment to further this conversation. I made a video called My Heritage, I Am of Spanish Descent, but not really Hispanic or Latino. And Silent Bob had this to say, quote, "Why is America so race, color, and ethnicity obsessed and so gun obsessed? Are these two facts related? Is it a fundamentally violent society?" End quote. All right, here's my version of an answer for that. What I needed to do is give a little bit of background information on myself. I was born in 1981 in Alabama. Okay, a lot of times when people think of Alabama, they think of what they saw in Forrest Gump, the movie Forrest Gump with Tom Hanks. And it shows how the governor of Alabama at the time during civil rights was a very racist man, and he did some horrible things to African American people. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s learning about that, thinking this is horrible that people were treated this way because of their ethnic background. That's horrible. And growing up, we were taught, well, you shouldn't see color. You should be colorblind. And that was well-meaning, but ultimately it was a failure, I feel. Because if I look at someone who's black and think, oh, I don't even notice that they're black, they're the exact same as me. Well, that's very ignorant of me to think that. Because someone who is black in America, African American, they've had a different cultural experience than me. And I can spend my whole life trying to understand, but ultimately I'm never going to fully be able to understand what it's like to grow up African American because of all that's happened in America's history. So I feel I was born kind of in the aftermath of that, thinking, well, I don't want to be colorblind. I want to celebrate and acknowledge the fact that people are of different races, not just of African descent, but Asian or whatever it is. I want to celebrate that. I want to acknowledge that. I want to learn more about that, which is a lot of, what this channel is about, right? That's part of my identity. So it's a matter of, are we obsessed? I like to use a different word. I like to use the word overly aware. We're overly aware of race because we've got such a history here in America. And I think a lot of people like me want to be progressive and move forward, move past all of that, not ignore it, but learn from it and celebrate each other, whatever ethnicity we are, whatever background. Celebrate that, acknowledge it, realize that other people have had different struggles simply because of their ethnic background in America, and acknowledging that. I proudly celebrate Black History Month, Martin Luther King Day. Those are very important. I think those are very important holidays. I scoff the idea of Columbus Day. That to me is the opposite of what Columbus Day is, like the opposite of what Black History Month is all about. Europeans pretending that they found land that was already there and people had lived for thousands of years. You can't find something that's already there and then so to me, even if we're gonna say that we are racist, to me Columbus Day, that kind of makes me feel icky. Whereas I feel Black History Month and Martin Luther King Day, I'm like, yes, that's the right decision. That helps counter Columbus Day. That's moving forward. So to answer the question, are we obsessed? I say we're overly aware because we have to be. We have to be overly aware of what's going on. Otherwise, we can end up maybe falling in the same traps and not recognizing that people often of African American descent here in America have not had the same opportunities as, say, someone like I have. And it's important that I recognize that instead of being colorblind. So it's important that we're overly aware. It's important that we have Martin Luther King Day and Black History Month. Those things are important. As far as guns, being obsessed with guns, the perception is that America is obsessed with guns. If you watch what's on the news, you see all the shootings and all that, and it's easy to assume that the majority of people are all about guns and we gotta have our guns, okay? What about me personally? What's my opinion? Do I represent everybody saying, you can't take our guns away? Do I feel that? It's funny, my perception of things, I'm not a political guy. I want to be very clear about that. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. My perception is, I get it, the Second Amendment, gun rights, right to bear arms. I do recognize, though, that the guns we have now are not the same kind of guns that they had a couple hundred years ago, and that this is a problem. So I think it's okay to be in the middle on it. I think it's okay to say, you know what? It's okay that people have guns under certain restrictions, and then there's a lot of guns that people don't need to have, and especially who can get a hold of these guns. So as far as that goes, I'm kind of in the middle. I think there definitely needs to be changes for gun control, but I don't think we need to just eliminate all the guns. I don't think that that's possible based on our American culture. I think too many people, and it's not people just in the South, it's people, I don't know, New Mexico, people in Montana, wherever it is, but I think it can afford to be tweaked without such extremes. I think, here's how I perceive the real problem that America is facing. I think ultimately it's that we're too politically polarized. I think people know that in order to get people elected, they have to completely subscribe to one extreme or the other. You have to be a complete far left liberal that wants all the guns taken away, or you have to be a far alt-right and let there be no restrictions on guns whatsoever. And this goes for so many things. But I think that's ultimately the issue. And then what happens on top of that is that people's ethnic backgrounds get thrown into one extreme or the other. So therefore, if you are of a certain background and you want your rights defended for whatever that is, then you have to choose that one side. And then there's people like me who are in the middle thinking, no, I don't think that this is how we should do things, because this only continues to put America in a situation where we have to decide between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And I think most people in good conscience couldn't vote for either, but that's what they're left with, and they go, okay, well, might as well vote for one. What I look forward to is an America where we're not so polarized when it comes to political things, where we can be in the middle about things, and we can have some middle ground. To me, that is how we progress as a nation. We stop being so polarized politically, because that continues to keep us separated by race and ethnic background. I don't even need to spell it out. There's certain ethnic backgrounds that are going to by default be on the Democratic liberal side because they believe that that person's going to fight for their rights. And then the same thing if you are of other ethnic backgrounds. It's very predictable. You can often know how a person's going to vote, which extreme they're going to fall on, simply because of the ethnic background. That only reinforces the racial divide because of that extreme political divide that we've got. For me, it's not that we're obsessed with race, and it's not that we're obsessed with guns. It's that we're obsessed with one side or the other when it comes to politics.